We're going to begin this hour with news we hope that we would never have to report to you. The death toll from the COVID-19 pandemic has now reached 1 million Americans. That's according to the White House. President Biden will mark that very sad milestone later today. Experts think that the real number is really much higher, and it continues to grow. Our lead national correspondent, that would be David Begnaud, has shared the stories of many of the families dealing with the loss, those who cannot move on so easily. David checked in to see how they're doing now with the passage of time.
Over the past 2.5 years, we have interviewed someone from almost every state in the country who's been affected by COVID's death grip.
It's hard to breathe for him.
We've told stories of hundreds of people, but we don't often take the opportunity to circle back and say, how are you doing now? And that's what this is about. Pamela Orlando was a registered nurse from New Jersey and a single mom to 2 boys. I remember one of her sons telling me, David, Mom recorded videos of her downward spiral because she wanted people to see what the virus was doing to her.
I feel horrible.
Pam died on April 16, 2020. She was only 56. We checked in on her 2 sons. Her eldest, Reed, had considered a career in broadcasting. But after his mother died, he started working for a medical staffing company, he says, as a way to honor her. Pam's youngest son, Ryan, is an 18-year-old high school senior. He told us he has dedicated his studies to his mom, and recently, he received a scholarship to go to college. We remember Cody Lister. At one time, he was the youngest person to die of COVID in the state of Colorado. Cody was an avid baseball player and just an all-around great athlete. He was 21 when COVID killed him. His father, Kevin, also fought COVID, but he and his wife survived the virus. Cody's dad and mom tell us they try and live lives that would make him proud. They talk to him every day and share with him the milestones that he's missed. Their new Akita puppy, his sister Sierra's first prom. She actually plays softball and even wears her brother's number, 13. 32-year-old Jonathan Coelho. He passed away on April 22nd, 2020, after 27 days in the hospital. Just a few hours before they placed him on a ventilator, he wrote a note to his wife, Katie, and she shared it with us. In it, he said, "It makes me so proud to be your husband and the father to Braden and Penny."
You could see from start to finish, my husband worshiped us.
Almost 2 years later, Katie tells us that parenting alone has been a real challenge, especially while grieving. But it is her desire to be strong for their 2 children that's what's driving her forward. She says they have been her brightest lights since Jonathan's death. Braden, who has cerebral palsy, learned to walk with the aid of a walker, but he's doing it all by himself. Penny took her first steps
Come
on Father's Day last year.
Good job!
I remember 33-year-old Angel Mosley of New Orleans. Now, hers was a breakthrough case of COVID. She actually contracted the disease and died despite being fully vaccinated. Angel was hospitalized on a Friday. She died 2 days later, July 25th, 2021. We flew down to New Orleans shortly after she passed away and sat with her mother at the family's church.
If she were here right now, what would she want you to say?
Keep her business going because that was her baby.
Yeah.
That was her dream.
I am happy to report to you that Angel's legacy not only lives on, but her request is being honored.
That's a beautiful color.
Angel's clothing store, The Brave Boutique, which specializes in plus-size clothing for women, is still open, and it's being run by her mom and her friends. Just 2 hours west of New Orleans is where David Lemare lived in Lafayette. He had just graduated from high school when he died due to COVID. He and his brother Jacob were actually both hospitalized in the same ICU with COVID-19 related pneumonia. The brothers survived. David fought for weeks. Their father, Mark, who is a doctor, spent so many days by David's bedside, praying and watching his son's slow deterioration.
I learned a lot about my son, and about how compassionate he was and how deep his faith was.
David died July 31st, 2020. His loved ones commemorated his passing with a balloon release 1 year later. David had a love of photography, especially landscapes, His dad told us that whenever he sees a sunset, it gives him a good feeling that his son is watching over them. Alfredo and Susanna Pavitow of New Jersey were married for 44 years. They both contracted COVID and they died within 4 days of each other back in March 2020. Now, they had been on COVID's front lines. She was a nurse, he was a medical transporter, their daughter, Cheryl.
Day by day, it gets harder for me.
We checked in on Cheryl, and she told us that OSHA investigated the hospital where her parents died, accusing the hospital of failing to protect employees from exposure to coronavirus. Now, Cheryl had had concerns that her father was not provided with the proper PPE, nor was he trained on how to use it. Cheryl tells us, after all of this, she has become a certified health inspector, and she wants to be an OSHA investigator herself. Finally, she told us it was her mother's wish that she would find love. She has. Meet Uber. I believe my husband was sent to me from my parents, she told us. You probably have noticed the chairs that I'm surrounded by. They are empty, and that is meant to honor those who we didn't name, those whose names and stories may never be known publicly. May their memories be a blessing.
David, we certainly did notice the chairs, and we all thought that's exactly what you were doing. I remember when we used to do these stories once a week, we'd go through and remember the people that did not survive. It's a reminder again, guys, about COVID, that it doesn't care about your age, your race, your gender. And I think it's so important we keep throwing around this number, 1 million people. But as you've shown us, behind those 1 million people are real names of people who were loved and dearly missed as we sit here.
They have
today.
Stories.
Yes, I'll never forget this.
It's so hard to wrap your head around a number of that size. And
Yes.
David, I mean, I commend you for doing such a tremendous job in helping us engage with those stories as representative of that bigger number.
Yes.
And then the empty chairs is just such a powerful metaphor for what this country has lost.
Tony, I just want to say to the to the families we've spoken to, thank you for allowing us to tell your stories. And to those we haven't, we are thinking of you this morning. This was a tribute to all of you.
Exactly right. And I think we need to keep reminding people this is what COVID does. It tears people apart and leaves behind tremendous, tremendous pain.
For sure.
David, thank you very much.
You bet.